The room went still after Jonathan slid the papers across the table. Then Genevieve laughed, not cruel, just confident. I counted the grain lines in the wood and the distance to my purse. Have you ever sat in a room where people discuss your life like you weren't there? Where decisions about something you built got made without your voice mattering? That's what erasure feels like. Not loud, not violent, just surgical. They were dismantling 43 years of my life with crisp paper and polite smiles, betting I was too old, too tired, too grieving to notice. The conference room smelled like furniture polish and cold coffee. Jonathan sat across from me, his tie perfect, his smile tight. Genevieve perched beside him, one hand on her leather portfolio, the other holding a pen she never set down. That should have been my first clue. "We're modernizing, Mom," Jonathan said, sliding a folder toward me, "taking the company in a new direction." Hayes and Sons Construction. The name Victor and I chose together in 1980, sitting at our kitchen table with a newborn Jonathan asleep upstairs. The company we built from a single pickup truck and a toolbox. $15 million in annual revenue now. 43 years of sweat, bids, early mornings, and handshake deals. The dissolution papers sat between us like an accusation. I opened the folder slowly. The buyout number jumped out first. $350,000 for a company worth at least $8 million. I didn't speak, just traced the number with my finger and watched Jonathan shift in his seat. "It's a fair offer," Genevieve said. Her voice had that attorney smoothness, measured, calm, final. "Considering current market conditions and your reduced involvement since Victor passed." My reduced involvement, as if grief was the same as incompetence. I flipped through the pages, legal language, dense paragraphs, but certain things stood out. My title listed as consultant instead of co-founder and CFO. Board meeting minutes I'd never received. Financial projections that didn't match the numbers I'd been tracking. "We don't need your opinion, Grandma," Genevieve said, leaning forward. "Sign or we'll proceed without you." The air conditioning hummed. Someone's pen clicked. 3 times. I counted. Jonathan wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the mahogany table instead, at his reflection in the polished wood, the same table where Victor used to spread blueprints and teach Jonathan how to read load-bearing specs. I noticed the side table then. New LLC paperwork, half visible under Jonathan's folder. Hayes Construction Group printed at the top, not Hayes and Sons. Something new, something I'd never approved. And there, clipped to Genevieve's portfolio, board minutes dated last month. A meeting I was never invited to. My purse sat at my feet, phone inside, recording app running. Georgia's a one-party consent state. I'd learned that from Genevieve herself, back when she used to brag about courtroom victories at family dinners. Miss one signature card change, lose 43 years of work, subscribe so you catch the warning signs early. I reached for my coat. Slow, deliberate, let them think I was beaten. That's when I saw it. The power of attorney document, 3rd page, bottom signature block. My name, my signature, dated April 15th, 2023. 3 weeks after Victor died, 3 weeks after his funeral. A day I spent in bed, unable to move, unable to think. A signature I never made. I stood, picked up my purse, looked at Jonathan, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing my son's face. "I'll have my attorney review this," I said. Genevieve's laugh followed me to the door. Light, dismissive. The laugh of someone who'd already won. The bank manager's face told me everything before she opened her mouth. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm so sorry. Your access was removed in May." I stood at the marble counter of First National, the same bank where Victor and I opened our first business account in 1980. Back then, the manager was a young man named Albert who took a chance on 2 kids with big dreams and no collateral. Now Albert was retired, and this woman, Rachel, her name tag read, was looking at me like I'd forgotten my own name. Removed by whom? I kept my voice level. Rachel pulled up the account on her computer, fingers moving across the keyboard. Authorized Representative Jonathan Hayes, May 18th. He said it was a security update after your husband's passing. May 18th. 2 months after Victor died, 1 month after I'd started noticing things were wrong. I'm listed as co-founder and CFO on all original documents, I said. I see that. Rachel's voice went soft, careful. But the authorization it looked legitimate. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hayes. We should have contacted you directly. She should have. But Jonathan knew this bank, knew the protocols, knew exactly how to make it look right. I need copies, I said. Every authorization change since March, every signature card update, every document with my name or Jonathan's name on it. Rachel hesitated. Her perfume was too sweet, floral and cloying. It made my head hurt. That's going to be extensive, she said. I set my purse on the counter, opened my checkbook, the personal one, not the business account I could no longer access. How much for copies? Mrs. Hayes, that's not... How much? She named a price. I wrote the check. The printer started humming 10 minutes later. Page after page, signature cards, authorization forms, wire transfer approvals, all bearing Jonathan's signature, none bearing mine after May 18th. I hadn't received updated statements at home either. I'd assumed it was a mail delay. Grief makes you assume a lot of things. The stack of papers grew. Rachel handed them across the counter in a manila folder, the edges already fading from the copy machine heat. Mrs. Hayes, she said quietly, if there's anything irregular here, we'll cooperate fully with any investigation. I met her eyes. How far back can you pull transaction history? How far do you need? March, I said. Every wire, every signature, every authorization. She paused, mouse hovering over the screen. That's going to take a few days to compile. It's extensive. The word again. Extensive. As if 43 years of work could be summarized in a bureaucratic term. So was building this company, I said. Rachel nodded slowly, wrote something on a sticky note, attached it to a request form. I'll have it ready by Friday. Mrs. Hayes? She looked up. Your husband used to come in every month. Always had a kind word for everyone. He'd be proud you're doing this. I walked out into the afternoon heat, folder under my arm, and wondered what else Jonathan had erased while I was drowning in grief. Ever had your name erased from something you built? Comment erased if this hits close. The key was in Victor's tackle box, wrapped in a receipt from 1981. The box number matched nothing I recognized. I'd been sorting through his things in the garage all morning. Old toolboxes, fishing gear he hadn't touched in years. Decades of memories packed into cardboard boxes and plastic bins. Every item a story, every story a knife. His work boots still had dried concrete on the laces. The tackle box sat on a high shelf, behind paint cans and drop cloths. Green metal dented on one corner, the latch rusted but functional. Inside, lures, line, a faded photo of Jonathan at age 7 holding his first caught fish, and underneath the photo tray, taped to the bottom, a small brass key. The tape was old, yellowed, peeling at the edges. The key cold against my palm, a paper tag tied to it with fishing line. Original docs, Box 447, First National. Box 447. I didn't remember a Box 447. Victor kept our important documents in a fireproof safe in the office. Birth certificates, insurance policies, the original partnership agreement. Or so I'd thought. I drove to First National, the key in my coat pocket. Different branch this time, across town. The vault manager checked my ID twice before leading me down the narrow hallway to the safety deposit room. Box 447 was small, unassuming. The key turned smoothly. Inside, a manila envelope thick with papers. A smaller white envelope on top. My name written in Victor's handwriting. That familiar slant, the way his D always looped too wide. I sat in the small private room they provided. Concrete walls, single chair, fluorescent light humming overhead. The manila envelope first. I spread the contents across the table. Original 1980 partnership agreement, the real one. Miriam Hayes, 51% shareholder. Victor Hayes, 49%. Both signatures at the bottom, notarized, dated, filed. Victor's handwritten will draft. Never officially executed, but clear in intent. Miriam inherits all business assets and decision-making authority. Board meeting minutes from 2015, a restructuring discussion, notes in Victor's handwriting. Ensure Miriam's majority position protected regardless of operational changes. And a letter. They assume grief makes you weak. Subscribe to see what happens when underestimated becomes unstoppable. I opened the white envelope slowly. Single page. Dated 1 week before Victor died, before the heart attack that took him in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon site inspection. Miriam, if you're reading this, something's wrong. I hope I'm being paranoid, but I've noticed Jonathan asking questions about ownership structure. Genevieve's been too interested in the company financials. You own 51%. I made sure. The original partnership agreement is in this box, not the copy in the office safe. I never told Jonathan about this box. Don't let him forget what we built. Don't let anyone push you out. You're stronger than you think. You always were. My hands shook. The paper blurred. Victor knew. A week before he died, he knew something was coming. I pressed the letter to my chest, alone in that concrete room, and understood. This wasn't just theft. This was planned. And Victor had left me the proof. Frederick Walters didn't look surprised when I spread the documents across his desk. He looked sad. Miriam, he said quietly, adjusting his glasses, what did Jonathan do? Frederick had been Victor's attorney for 30 years, handled our wills, our business contracts, our property purchases. His office near Decatur was modest, law books lining every wall, afternoon sun filtering through half-closed blinds, the smell of old paper and coffee. I handed him the fraudulent power of attorney first, the one from the conference room dated April 15th, 3 weeks after Victor died, my signature at the bottom. Frederick studied it for a long moment, set it down carefully. Pulled his own file from the cabinet behind his desk. I never drafted this, he said. His voice was steady, but his jaw was tight. That's not my signature either. It's forged. He showed me the real documents. Victor's actual will, properly filed, properly executed. Miriam Hayes named as sole beneficiary and primary decision-maker. No power of attorney granted to Jonathan. No authorization for him to act on my behalf. He's been operating under false authority for months, Frederick said. I showed him the bank signature cards, the removal of my access, the board meeting minutes I never received. Frederick made notes on his yellow legal pad, the pen scratching steady and methodical. His coffee mug sat at his elbow, chipped at the rim, the same mug he'd used for years. And this! I handed him the original partnership agreement from the safety deposit box. 51%. Frederick read it twice, nodded. This supersedes anything Jonathan has filed. This is the foundational document. He looked up at me over his glasses. But Miriam, if he's forging documents and removing your bank access, he's not stopping at paperwork. What do you mean? I mean, we need a forensic accountant. Someone who can trace every transaction, every transfer, every payment since Victor died. He made another note. And we need to file an emergency injunction to freeze all company assets before he moves anything else. The oak desk between us was worn smooth from decades of case files and client meetings. Sun caught the dust motes hanging in the air. Outside, traffic hummed past on the main road. Frederick, I said, how bad is this? He leaned back in his chair. The leather creaked. Miriam, if half of what I'm seeing is real, Jonathan didn't just remove your name. He's been running a second company in parallel. He slid a printout across the desk. Georgia Secretary of State Business Registration, Hayes Construction Group, LLC, registered July 2023, 4 months after Victor died. Jonathan Hayes listed as CEO. Genevieve Hayes listed as registered agent. No mention of Hayes & Sons. No overlap in board members. A shadow company. He's been redirecting contracts, Frederick said. New clients think they're working with Hayes & Sons, but the money's going somewhere else. I stared at the LLC registration, at Jonathan's name in black and white, and realized my son hadn't just betrayed me. He'd been planning this for months, flag that LLC name. You'll see where the money went. Sharon Park didn't smile when she opened the files. She just started color coding with 4 different highlighters: yellow, orange, pink, green. We sat in a coffee shop in Buckhead, mid-morning, the place half empty. Sharon was Frederick's recommendation, 30 years in forensic accounting, specializing in family business fraud. She wore reading glasses on a chain and kept her laptop angled away from the other tables. I'd brought 3 months of bank statements, the copies from First National, transaction records I'd secretly downloaded before my access got removed, invoices I'd kept in my own files, the ones that didn't match the official numbers Jonathan had been reporting. Sharon spread them across our small table like evidence at a crime scene. "Talk me through what you noticed first," she said. "Quarterly reports," I said. "The numbers felt wrong. Revenues looked high, but our bank balance was lower than it should have been." Sharon nodded, highlighting a line on the first statement. Yellow. "Consulting fees. Genevieve Hayes, attorney at law, $47,000. Then another payment, $53,000, then $60,000. She looked up. "Do you have contracts for these consulting services?" "No." "Did the company ever use her firm before?" "Never. Victor didn't believe in mixing family and business finances." Sharon's highlighter moved faster. Orange now. "Wire transfers. Hayes Construction Group, LLC, $200,000, $300,000, $450,000. She pulled up something on her laptop. "Total transfers to that LLC since May, $1.2 million. The coffee shop sounds faded, the espresso machine hissing, low conversations, someone's phone ringing. "Personal expenses," Sharon continued, switching to pink. "Mortgage payment, address matches. Jonathan Hayes residence, car lease, Mercedes, registration, Genevieve Hayes, country club membership, both names. Those are charged to the company as business expenses, entertainment, client development." Sharon's mouth tightened. "But there's no corresponding client meetings, no receipts, no documentation." My tea sat untouched, Earl Grey, growing cold. I'd ordered it out of habit, but my stomach couldn't handle anything. Sharon worked in silence for 20 minutes, highlighting, cross-referencing, typing notes. Her laptop screen reflected in her glasses. Numbers and dates scrolling past. Finally, she sat back. "Mrs. Hayes, this isn't accounting errors. This is systematic asset stripping." "How much?" "So far, $1.8 million. But that's just what I can see in 3 months." She circled a date, green highlighter. "May 15th, the day your bank access was removed. One overlooked statement, years of theft. Subscribe, I'll show you what to watch for." "That's the day the transfers accelerated," Sharon said. "Before May, it was slow, small amounts, testing whether anyone would notice. After May, once you couldn't see the accounts anymore, they moved fast." She turned her laptop toward me, a spreadsheet, color-coded rows, dates, amounts, patterns. "They waited until you couldn't watch," Sharon said, "and then they ran." I looked at that spreadsheet, at the transfers, the fake invoices, the stolen money, and understood that this wasn't opportunistic. This was calculated, this was planned, and they'd been planning it long before Victor died. Predict how much total was stolen. Closest guess wins the comment section. The courthouse steps felt steeper than I remembered. Frederick carried the files. I carried Victor's letter. Fulton County Courthouse, downtown Atlanta. The building's stone facade looked the same as it had 30 years ago when Victor and I finalized our first major contract here. Different judge, different circumstances, same feeling in my stomach. that mix of hope and dread. Frederick held the door. We walked through security, emptied pockets, passed through the metal detector. The hallway smelled like floor wax and old wood. Our footsteps echoed. Judge Agnes Morgan's courtroom was on the 3rd floor. Emergency hearing, temporary restraining order, asset freeze. The words sounded clinical, but the stakes were everything. Jonathan and Genevieve were already there, sitting at the defendant's table with their attorney, a sharp-dressed man in his 50s who kept checking his phone. They hadn't expected this. The look on Genevieve's face when we walked in told me everything. Surprise, then calculation, then a forced smile. Frederick filed the motion, handed documents to the bailiff who passed them to Judge Morgan. She was younger than I expected, maybe late 40s with reading glasses on a chain and an expression that gave nothing away. She read in silence. 5 minutes. 10. The courtroom clock ticked above the jury box. Their attorney stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Hayes is understandably grief-stricken and confused. She's misinterpreting normal business transitions. My clients have acted in good faith to preserve... I've read the motion, Judge Morgan said, not looking up. Does your client dispute that this power of attorney was signed 3 weeks after Mr. Victor Hayes died? The attorney paused. The timing is unfortunate, but... Does your client dispute the signature? Mrs. Hayes signed many documents. In her grief, she may not remember. That's not what I asked. Silence. Judge Morgan set the papers down, removed her glasses. I'm reviewing these documents in chambers. 20 minutes. She stood. We stood. She disappeared through the side door. Jonathan stared at the table. Genevieve whispered something to their attorney. He shook his head. 20 minutes felt like hours. When Judge Morgan returned, her face was set. She didn't sit. Just stood at the bench, gavel in hand. Motion granted. Temporary restraining order issued. All accounts belonging to Hayes & Sons Construction are frozen effective immediately. All accounts belonging to Hayes Construction Group, LLC, are frozen effective immediately. All pending transfers are suspended pending full hearing in 30 days. The gavel came down. Single tap. Final. Jonathan inhaled sharply. I heard it across the room. Mrs. Hayes, Judge Morgan said, looking directly at me, your attorney will receive the order within the hour. Copies will be sent to all relevant financial institutions. Thank you, Your Honor. We gathered our things. Frederick's briefcase snapped shut. The sound cut through the quiet. As we walked out, Genevieve's voice carried down the hallway. This is temporary. She can't prove intent. Frederick didn't turn around, didn't slow down, just said, quiet enough that only I could hear, she already has. Outside, the afternoon sun hit my face. I took the first full breath I'd managed in 3 months. Would you freeze the accounts or confront them first? What's your move? The LLC filing was public record. Took me 12 minutes to find it online. Took 3 seconds to recognize the theft. I sat at my kitchen table. Same table where Victor and I wrote our first bid in 1980. Same surface where we used to spread blueprints and argue about lumber costs and profit margins. Now it held my laptop, Sharon's spreadsheets, and a growing pile of evidence. Georgia Secretary of State website, business entity search. I typed, Hayes Construction Group. The result loaded. Hayes Construction Group, LLC. Registered May 23, 2023. 2 months and 3 days after Victor died. 5 days after my bank access was removed. CEO, Jonathan Hayes. Registered agent, Genevieve Hayes. Business address, 4782 Pinewood Drive, Marietta. That was Jonathan's house. The one Victor and I helped them buy 5 years ago. The one where we used to have Sunday dinners before Genevieve decided I talked too much about the old days. No board of directors listed. No overlap with Hayes & Sons. A completely separate company using a nearly identical name. I cross-referenced Sharon's findings. Every major contract signed after May showed payments deposited to accounts I didn't recognize. But the contracts themselves still bore the Hayes & Sons letterhead, our logo, our company address, our reputation. The clients thought they were hiring us. They were paying someone else. I printed everything, page after page. The printer hummed and spit out evidence. My reading glasses hung on their chain around my neck. I put them on, took them off, put them on again. Next, I pulled Sharon's financial analysis. Every contract after May 18th. Peachtree Medical Plaza, $890,000. Routed to Hayes Construction Group, LLC. Roswell Office Park, $675,000. Routed to Hayes Construction Group, LLC. Marietta School District renovation, $100,000. Routed to Hayes Construction Group, LLC. 3 contracts. Original bids signed by Victor before he died. Money redirected after his death. The afternoon light came through my kitchen window. Same window I'd looked through for 40 years. The neighbor's dog barked. Life continuing as normal while my world got pulled apart and reassembled piece by piece. I organized everything into a binder, color-coded tabs like Sharon taught me. Yellow, financial, orange, legal. Pink, contracts. Green, LLC documents. They built a shadow company while you grieve. Subscribe so you recognize the setup before it's too late. The Peachtree Medical contract sat on top. I remembered that project. Victor worked on the bid for 3 weeks before he died. Late nights at this table, calculator in hand, measuring tape draped over the chair. He wanted that job, said it would position us for more medical facility work. He signed the bid February 19, 2023, 3 weeks before his heart attack. The contract got accepted March 28th, 12 days after his funeral. Payment deposited May 18th, to an account Victor never knew existed. I stared at the dates. The timeline didn't lie. They'd waited, planned, executed. The first contract routed to the new LLC was dated May 18th, 3 days after my bank access was removed. Client, Peachtree Medical Plaza. Value $890,000. Victor's bid, Jonathan's bank account. That timeline proves what? Drop your theory below. Georgia is a one-party consent state. I learned that from Genevieve herself, back when she bragged about her courtroom wins. Sunday dinner 2 years ago, before Victor died, before everything changed. Genevieve had just won a big case and she couldn't stop talking about it. Georgia law is beautiful, she'd said, pouring more wine. One-party consent for recordings. I had my client record every conversation. The opposing counsel never saw it coming. Victor had laughed, said something about legal tricks. I'd filed it away in the back of my mind, one of those random facts you don't think you'll ever need. But I needed it now. Frederick sat in my living room, laptop open on the coffee table. My phone connected to his computer via USB cable. The recording app showed one file, 47 minutes, 18 seconds. Recorded September 12th. The conference room meeting, the day they tried to make me sign away my company. Ready? Frederick asked. I nodded. He pressed play. Static first. Then Jonathan's voice clear and steady. We're modernizing, Mom. Taking the company in a new direction. The sound was tinny through the phone speaker, but perfectly understandable. Every word, every pause, every dismissive laugh. My own voice, the buyout number seems low. Genevieve, sharp and confident, it's a fair offer. Considering current market conditions and your reduced involvement since Victor passed. Frederick typed as the recording played, creating a time-stamped transcript. His pen scratched notes in the margins. My living room was quiet except for the playback and the clock ticking on the mantel. Victor's photo watched from the shelf. Wedding picture. 1978. Coffee sat on the side table. I'd reheated it twice. Still couldn't drink it. The recording continued. Jonathan discussing operational changes. Genevieve outlining legal steps. Then the line that made Frederick's pen stop moving. Genevieve's voice. 14 minutes, 32 seconds in. We don't need your opinion, Grandma. Sign or we'll proceed without you. Laughter, light, dismissive. Another voice. Jonathan, quieter. The transition should be finalized by December. Once the accounts are fully transferred. Jonathan. Genevieve's warning tone. A pause. Papers shuffling. Genevieve again. The old woman won't know what hit her until it's done. Frederick stopped the playback, looked at me. That phrase right there, won't know what hit her until it's done, that's consciousness of wrongdoing. Meaning? Meaning she knew it was wrong. She knew they were hiding it from you. She just confessed intent to defraud you, and she did it while you were sitting 3 feet away. I stared at the laptop screen. The waveform of the audio file looked like a heartbeat. Up and down, evidence breathing. It's admissible, I asked. Georgia's one-party consent law. You were present. You consented. They had no expectation of privacy in a business meeting. Frederick's smile was thin. Genevieve taught you better than she realized. He rewound the recording, played it again. That laugh, that dismissive tone, that confession. Miriam, Frederick said, looking up, they handed you the case. Ever caught someone on their own words? This moment, comment recorded if you felt that. George Bradshaw thought he was still working with Hayes & Sons. He had no idea his checks were going somewhere else. We met him at his office, Peachtree Medical Plaza, the project Victor bid before he died. George was in his 60s, balding with a firm handshake and reading glasses perched on his head. He'd known Victor for 15 years, trusted him, trusted us. Frederick sat beside me, notebook open, pen ready. Mrs. Hayes, George said, sitting behind his desk. I was sorry to hear about Victor. He was a good man. Thank you. I set my folder on his desk. George, I need to ask you about your contract, the renovation project. Going great. Your son's crew is excellent, right on schedule. Do you have a copy of the contract? He pulled it from his file cabinet, slid it across. Hayes & Sons construction letterhead, our logo at the top, Victor's signature on the bid, my name listed as CFO. Where did you send payment? I asked. George checked his records. Account information was in the contract. Why? Is something wrong? I showed him the bank routing number on his payment confirmation. Showed him the Hayes Construction Group, LLC registration. Different company, different account, different owners. His face changed, confusion to understanding to anger. I thought I was paying Hayes & Sons. You thought correctly. The contract says Hayes & Sons, but the money went somewhere else. That's fraud. Yes. Frederick handed George an affidavit. We need a sworn statement that you believed you were contracting with Hayes & Sons Construction, that you trusted Miriam Hayes' oversight, that you were not informed of any ownership changes. George signed without hesitation. Victor built your reputation on honesty. If someone's stealing that, I'll testify. We met Susan Carlisle the next day. Roswell Office Park project. Mid-50s, sharp dresser, sharper mind. She ran a commercial property management company and didn't tolerate nonsense. She reviewed the same documents, same confusion, same anger. I hired you because Victor never cut corners, she said. I kept hiring you because I knew Miriam was watching the numbers. Frederick took her statement. Susan signed. Mrs. Hayes, if you need witnesses, you've got one. Peter Mitchell was last. Marietta School District renovation, government contract, Victor's biggest project, the one he was most proud of. Peter was younger than the others, maybe 45, with tired eyes and a coffee-stained tie. School district work was demanding, underpaid, high stress. Your husband came to every site meeting personally, Peter said. Even when he was sick, he cared. I showed him the contract, the routing number, the LLC registration. Peter went quiet, pulled his copy of the contract, compared them line by line. This is trademark infringement at minimum, he said. Federal offense. I know. Mrs. Hayes, Victor always said you were the backbone of that company. Peter picked up Frederick's pen. If someone's trying to cut you out, we're testifying. All of us. 3 clients. 3 sworn statements. 3 witnesses ready to stand in court and say they'd been deceived. Jonathan had stolen the money, but he'd also stolen something more valuable: trust. And trust, once documented as fraud, becomes evidence. Would you testify for someone who built their reputation honestly? Say yes or maybe below. The letter arrived by courier at 6:47 a.m., Genevieve's firm logo, 3 pages, all threat. I stood in my kitchen, still in my bathrobe, holding thick, expensive paper that smelled like desperation dressed as authority. Cease and desist in bold letters at the top. I read it once, slowly. They were threatening to sue me for defamation, for interfering with legitimate business operations, for harassing their clients. The language was sharp, formal, designed to intimidate. Mrs. Hayes has made numerous false and damaging statements regarding Hayes Construction Group, LLC, a properly registered and licensed business entity. These statements constitute defamation per se and have caused irreparable harm to our client's professional reputation. They demanded I withdraw all legal actions, except a revised buyout, $450,000, still far below the company's actual value, but higher than their first insult. The letter included veiled threats about protecting family relationships and avoiding public embarrassment. Translation: settle quietly or they'd make this ugly. The last paragraph was Genevieve's voice wrapped in legal jargon. Continued pursuit of baseless claims will result in countersuits for malicious prosecution and emotional distress. Consider this your final opportunity to resolve this matter privately. I set the letter down, made coffee, strong, black. The morning sun came through the window, birds at the feeder Victor built, normal Tuesday morning sounds, life continuing while threats arrived on expensive paper. I called Frederick at 7. He answered on the second ring. They sent a cease and desist, I said. Expected. What's the offer? $450,000. Threats if I don't accept. Silence on his end. Then, Miriam, they're panicking. People who have the law on their side don't threaten, they wait. What do? We respond. Give me 2 hours. Frederick's response was 2 paragraphs. Surgical, precise. Dear Counsel, Mrs. Miriam Hayes declines your settlement offer. Your clients operated under fraudulent power of attorney, removed Mrs. Hayes from financial accounts without authorization, and redirected $1.8 million in company funds to an entity created without proper shareholder approval. We have recordings, forensic analysis, and client affidavits supporting our position. Mrs. Hayes demands full accounting of all redirected funds and immediate resignation of Jonathan Hayes and Genevieve Hayes from all company positions within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in criminal referral for forgery, fraud, and theft. This is your only opportunity to exit with dignity. I read it 3 times. Want me to soften it? Frederick asked over speakerphone. I thought about Victor's letter, about the forged signatures, about Genevieve's laugh in the conference room, about 43 years reduced to a buyout number that wouldn't cover our first year's revenue. No, I said. Send it. The printer spit out the response. I signed at the bottom. Frederick's office would courier it back within the hour. Frederick added 1 line at the end. Mrs. Hayes is prepared to pursue all civil and criminal remedies available under Georgia law. Consider this your only opportunity to exit with dignity. He paused. Miriam, once this goes out, there's no turning back. I looked at Victor's photo on the wall. Good, I said. Send it. Ever been threatened into silence and refused? Drop send it if you do the same. They asked for a meeting. Neutral location, no recording devices. I brought Frederick and Sharon and wore Victor's watch. The mediation office was in Midtown Atlanta, 10th floor. Bland beige walls, generic corporate art. Conference table that seated 12, the kind of room designed to be forgettable. Jonathan and Genevieve arrived 15 minutes late. 2 attorneys flanked them. Expensive suits, briefcases that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I sat across the table. Frederick on my right, Sharon on my left. 3 binders stacked in front of me, each 3 inches thick. Color-coded tabs visible from across the room. The mediator was a retired judge. Gray hair, reading glasses perched on his nose, the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen every kind of human conflict. He reviewed both sides' preliminary statements in silence. "Let's begin," he said. Jonathan spoke first. "This is about family, about reconciliation, about honoring Dad's memory by keeping the company united." His voice cracked on the word family. Performance or genuine emotion, I couldn't tell anymore. I didn't respond. Just slid the first binder across the table. "Forged power of attorney," I said. "Page 1, my signature, dated 3 weeks after my husband's funeral, a day I spent in bed unable to function. Page 12, analysis proving the signature doesn't match my authenticated documents." Frederick slid the second binder. Recording transcript. Conference room meeting, September 12th, 14 minutes, 32 seconds. Direct quote from Mrs. Genevieve Hayes. "The old woman won't know what hit her until it's done." Sharon opened the third binder. Client affidavits. George Bradshaw, Peachtree Medical. Susan Carlisle, Roswell Office Park. Peter Mitchell, Marietta School District. All 3 confirming they believed they were contracting with Hayes & Sons Construction, not Hayes Construction Group, LLC. All 3 confirming contracts bore fraudulent letterhead. She turned pages slowly, methodically. Financial analysis, 47 separate fraudulent transactions, $1.8 million in redirected funds, personal expenses charged as business costs, systematic asset stripping across 18 months. The room went quiet. Jonathan stared at the table. Genevieve's jaw was tight, her hands clasped in front of her. Bottled water sat untouched between them. Genevieve's lead attorney, the older one with silver hair, reviewed the evidence for 30 minutes, flipped pages, made notes, conferred with his client in whispers that carried across the room anyway. He stepped outside with Jonathan and Genevieve. The door clicked shut. Frederick leaned close. They're calculating exposure. Criminal charges versus settlement. What do you think they'll do? Whatever protects Genevieve's law license. 20 minutes later, they returned. The attorney cleared his throat. My clients propose the following. Jonathan Hayes and Genevieve Hayes resign all positions with Hayes & Sons Construction, effective immediately. All transferred assets returned within 60 days. Hayes Construction Group, LLC dissolved. Public statement issued crediting Miriam Hayes's continued leadership. In exchange, Mrs. Hayes agrees not to pursue criminal charges. The mediator looked at me. "Mrs. Hayes, do you accept these terms?" I glanced at Victor's watch. 5:03 p.m., the time he proposed to me in 1978. Same watch, different lifetime. Forgiveness or consequences? Which would you choose? Subscribe to see how quiet power wins. "I accept," I said. "On one condition. The public statement includes a formal apology, not to me, but to every client whose trust was violated, every employee who was lied to, every vendor who deserved better." "What's the one condition you'd add?" "Predict below." The press release went out at 9 a.m. Tuesday. By noon, every client had called. I sat at my desk, Victor's old desk, watching the phone light up, line after line. The morning sun came through the windows, hitting the frame photo I'd placed front and center. Victor and me at our first job site, 1980, standing in front of a half-built office building with matching hard hats and tired smiles. The statement was simple, direct. No corporate jargon. Effective immediately, Miriam Hayes assumes the role of president and CEO of Hayes & Sons Construction. Jonathan Hayes and Genevieve Hayes have resigned to pursue other opportunities. The company reaffirms its founding commitment to integrity and client service, established in 1980 by Miriam and Victor Hayes. We apologize to our clients and employees for recent organizational confusion and commit to transparent communication moving forward. The first call came from George Bradshaw. Mrs. Hayes, I just saw the announcement. About time someone set things straight. Thank you, George. We always knew you were running things behind the scenes anyway. Susan Carlyle called 30 minutes later. Miriam, congratulations. When can we schedule our next project review? Peter Mitchell from the school district called just before lunch. Mrs. Hayes, the board wanted me to reach out. We have full confidence in your leadership. One by one, clients, vendors, industry contacts. The calls flooded in, support, relief, questions about continuity that I answered personally, every single one. My email inbox looked like a ticker tape parade. Subject lines scrolling past, messages of congratulations, requests for meetings, contract renewals, new business inquiries. I made fresh coffee. First pot I'd brewed in this office in months. The smell filled the room, normal, familiar, grounding. The office felt different now. Clear desk, organized files, Victor's photo where I could see it. My nameplate ordered and waiting. Miriam Hayes, President and CEO. The door opened. Maria, our office manager, poked her head in. Mrs. Hayes, you have 17 voicemails. Should I start returning calls? I'll handle them personally. She smiled. It's good to have you back. It's good to be back. The day passed in a rhythm of calls and emails and coffee refills, each conversation rebuilding trust, each message confirming what I'd fought for. This company's reputation, built over 43 years, couldn't be stolen with forged signatures and smooth words. At 4:30, the phone rang one more time. Hayes & Sons Construction, Miriam Hayes speaking. Mrs. Hayes, this is Stephen Park, Marietta School District Facilities Director. We have a new project, 8-building campus expansion. Would Hayes & Sons be interested in bidding? I looked at Victor's photo, at the blueprint spread across my desk, at the company we'd built from nothing. Send the specs, I said. We'll have a proposal by Friday. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet office. Phone finally silent, sun starting to set. 43 years of work, nearly stolen, now reclaimed. Not with violence, not with vengeance, just with truth, documentation, and refusing to disappear when someone tried to erase me. New beginning or full circle. Tell me which this feels like. The first thing I did was change the locks. The second thing was repaint Victor's office. Same color, fresh start. 6 weeks after settlement, Hayes & Sons Construction was healing, but it needed more than legal victories. It needed operational truth. I hired Michael Kang as Chief Operating Officer, 30 years in commercial construction, reputation for ethics and tight project management. He'd worked with Victor on the Buckhead Medical Center project in 2015. Good man, fair, direct. Miriam, he said during our first meeting, what do you need from me? Honesty, accountability, help rebuilding what got broken. He started the next Monday. We restructured the board, added 3 independent directors, a CPA, a construction attorney, and a retired general contractor. People with no family ties, no conflicts, just experience and integrity. New financial controls went into effect immediately. Dual signatures required on every check over $5,000. Monthly external audits, quarterly board reviews, no more single points of failure. I called an all-hands meeting, every employee, conference room packed, some faces I knew, some I didn't. Jonathan had hired people I'd never met. I'm Miriam Hayes, I said. Some of you remember me, some of you don't. Either way, we're starting fresh. This company was built on transparency, fair wages, and keeping our word. That's what we're going back to. The room was quiet, uncertain. I know Jonathan told some of you I was retiring, that I didn't understand modern business. I paused. That was a lie. I'm here. I'm staying. And if you choose to stay, I promise you'll always know where the company stands financially, where your jobs are secure, and that your work matters. One foreman in the back, older guy, maybe 60, raised his hand. Mrs. Hayes, most of us remember Mr. Victor. We stayed because we hoped you'd come back. My throat tightened. Thank you for waiting. After the meeting, I gave raises to everyone who'd stayed through the chaos. Performance bonuses for crews who'd kept projects on schedule despite the turmoil. Trust had to be rebuilt brick by brick. The office transformation continued. New file cabinets, reorganized conference room, weekly team meetings. Transparent communication about contracts, timelines, budgets. Lunchroom laughter started coming back. Blueprints spread on tables again. Safety meetings where I showed up personally, hard hat on, asking questions, listening to concerns. Slowly, carefully, the company remembered what it used to be. They tried to dismantle 43 years in 18 months. Subscribe to learn how solid foundations outlast every storm. I was cleaning out the last of Jonathan's things when I found it, tucked in the back of his old desk drawer. Victor's first business card from 1980. The number was disconnected now, the card yellowed at the edges. But the name, our name, was still clear. I placed it in a frame next to my computer. Underneath, I added my new card. Same company, same values, new chapter. Victor would have approved. What's the one symbol you'd keep from someone you lost? Share below. The envelope had no return address. Inside, a cashier's check and 2 words, I'm sorry. 3 months after settlement, late afternoon in my office, mail stack on the corner of my desk, most of it routine, invoices, contracts, industry newsletters. This envelope was different, plain, cheap paper. Hand addressed to me personally, not to the company. I opened it slowly. Cashier's check. $50,000, made out to Hayes & Sons Construction, a note on lined paper, Jonathan's handwriting, shakier than I remembered, less confident. Mom, I'm sorry. Dad would be ashamed of what I did. I don't expect forgiveness. This money doesn't fix anything, but it's a start. I was angry after Dad died, angry that he left, angry that you seemed stronger than me. Genevieve convinced me I deserved more, that you were too old to understand. I listened because it was easier than admitting I was scared of filling Dad's shoes. That doesn't excuse it. Nothing excuses it. This is partial restitution beyond the settlement. Do whatever you think is right with it. J. I sat with that letter for an hour, read it 3 times, stared at the check, looked at Victor's photo on my desk. Finally, I called Frederick. Miriam? I got a letter from Jonathan with a check. Silence. How much? 50,000. Are you asking if accepting it creates legal complications? Yes, it doesn't. The settlement's finalized. This is separate. Your call entirely. I thanked him. Hung up. Sat with the decision. The scholarship fund? I've been planning it for weeks. Victor Hayes Memorial Scholarship for trade school students. Kids who wanted to learn construction, plumbing, electrical work, hands-on careers, the kind Victor valued. I deposited the check that afternoon. First contribution to the fund. Jonathan's apology, transformed into opportunity for kids who'd never met Victor but would benefit from his legacy. I didn't call Jonathan, didn't write back. Some apologies you accept by moving forward, not by looking back. That night, I opened my journal, same one I'd kept for 40 years. Victor used to tease me about it. You write everything down, he'd say. Someday you'll have a book. I wrote one line. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means refusing to let their choices define my next chapter. The scholarship fund would launch in January. Full tuition awards for 5 students annually. Application requirements. Financial need. Genuine interest in the trades, and a short essay about why building things matters. Victor would have loved that. The essay part especially. He always said construction wasn't just about materials and labor. It was about creating spaces where people lived, worked, learned, healed. Jonathan's money would do that now. Build something better than he'd intended, better than he'd destroyed. I closed the journal. Outside my window, Atlanta's lights spread across the skyline. Somewhere in that city, Jonathan was living with his choices. I was living with mine. The difference was, mine built something that would outlast both of us. Would you accept that apology? Comment, accept, or decline. The anniversary party wasn't my idea. The employees insisted. Hayes and Sons Construction, 44th anniversary, 1 year since Victor died. 6 months since settlement. The company headquarters conference room, the same room where Jonathan had tried to erase me, was now filled with people who'd chosen to stay. Employees, clients, vendors, subcontractors, the community we'd built over 4 decades. Someone had hung a banner, Building Foundations That Last, 1980-2024. Michael Kang, our COO, stood at the front. We're here to honor Miriam and Victor Hayes, the people who built this company on integrity, fair dealing, and keeping promises. A plaque was unveiled, brushed metal, simple engraving, in honor of Miriam and Victor Hayes building foundations. That last it would hang in the lobby, permanent, visible to everyone who walked through our doors. I stood to speak, hands shaking slightly. Public speaking was never my strength. That was Victor's gift. But these people deserved to hear from me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying when things got hard. This company exists because of people who show up, do honest work, and care about what they're building. I paused, looked around the room. Faces I'd known for years, newer faces who'd proven themselves. Victor and I started with a pickup truck and a toolbox. We didn't have money. We had a reputation we hadn't earned yet. So we earned it. 1 project, 1 client, 1 promise kept. My voice steadied. This last year tested that reputation, tested all of us. But we're still here, still building, still keeping promises. I held up my phone. This morning we signed a contract for the Marietta Community Center. The project Victor bid 3 weeks before he died. We break ground in April. Applause. Genuine. Warm. George Bradshaw stood. Mrs. Hayes, the clients wanted to give you something. He handed me a large frame. Inside, the restored photo of Victor and me at our first job site, 1980. We looked impossibly young. Hard hats too big, smiles wide, standing in front of a half-built office building that's still standing today. The colors were brightened, the damage repaired, but the image was authentic. Us, young, hopeful, building something that would last. We found the original in your archived files, George said. Thought it belonged in the lobby, next to the plaque. I couldn't speak, just nodded, held the frame against my chest. They tried to dismantle 43 years in 18 months. Subscribe to learn how solid foundations outlast every storm. After the party, I drove to the Marietta Community Center site. Empty lot now. Stakes marking the foundation corners. Blueprint rolled under my arm. I stood where the main entrance would be. Closed my eyes, felt the late afternoon warmth, heard traffic in the distance, construction sounds from neighboring sites, hopeful noise. Victor's company pin was fastened to my jacket. Small, understated. The original logo from 1980. 44 years, stolen signatures, forged papers, mocking laughter, all of it behind me now. I looked at the foundation stakes, the ground survey marks, the beginning of something Victor had envisioned and I would complete. Solid ground, level earth, built to last, just like Victor taught me, just like I'd teach the scholarship students who'd carry these lessons forward. The sun was setting, golden light across the lot. I unrolled the blueprint, Victor's signature on the original bid, my signature on the executed contract. Together, still building, still keeping promises, still proving that the most powerful move isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the one they never see coming, the quiet strength of a woman who knows her numbers, trusts her instincts, and refuses to be erased.